Where are the Muslims today? What are the Muslim countries doing?
Yeah.
Technically, the Muslim population, we make up 1/5 of the world population. Where are they now? Are you just standing idle and doing nothing?
It will take at least 20 years, and some reports say at least 80 years to rebuild Gaza itself. Subhanallah, can you imagine that?
Feeling of helplessness throughout the lands of the Muslims everywhere else, even everywhere in the world. It appears that we don't have any means to affect the war there.
ولو أن أهل القرى آمنوا واتقوا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Barakah Effect podcast, the podcast where we discuss how to make the best out of our productivity, career, parenting, family, religion, and life, and how we can achieve extraordinary success in dunya and akhirah. Today's topic of discussion is a heartbreaking topic. It's something that's gut-wrenching, unprecedented, and traumatizing current issue, a humanitarian crisis and disaster that's plaguing the thoughts and headlines of media today, of not just Muslims, but also all human beings worldwide. And that topic is the topic of Gaza. So the title that we've chosen for this topic is Where is the Help of Allah? So in this topic, we're going to share on some of our thoughts of what's happening right now in Gaza and what we can do as Muslims and what's our role. So at the time of our recording of this episode right now, so since this conflict, or I don't know what you want to call it. What do you call it? War? What do you?
Genocide?
Huh?
Genocide.
This genocide, yeah. This
Yes.
genocide, this oppression that has kind of triggered since the 7th of October 2023. So as with the time of recording this, it's been 8 months since this genocide has started. And statistically speaking, there's about 37,000 deaths. And most of those are women and children. And we have over 85,000 injuries. And
Yes, subhanallah.
in recent statistics, it shows that there's like Israel has dropped 70,000 tons of bombs in the Gaza Strip. This actually is even more than the entirety of the bombs that were dropped in 3 major World War II locations throughout 1940 and 1941. And where we are right now is like there are international courts and, all these courts of justice. So supposedly they support the ceasefire, but there's no seemingly any actual action taking place. And this violence and oppression continues to increase also in the West Bank. And that's hurts us also as Muslims, right? Because that's the land of Al-Aqsa, one of the 3 greatest holy mosques. What else is happening, guys?
So there's about half of Gaza has been displaced. So there's about 2.3 million lost their houses. And they've been walking more than 24 kilometers, maybe 30 kilometers from the north to the south in search of refuge, safety. But every new places that they went, new bombs came out. New bombs were dropped. And right now, they're all cornered at the Egyptian border crossing in Rafah. And that's really small. And if you put a comparison, Gaza and where we are, our brothers all are from Miri. Gaza, it's half of the size of Miri. Yet Gaza's population, it's equal to the population of Miri. And now, everybody's cornered in Rafah. Rafah is 1/5 of Gaza. And you're cramming about 2 million people over there. It's like you're saying in Luto, there's 2 million people right now in Luto. That's how.
Yeah, and the heartbreaking thing is that they have nowhere to run because they can't go outside of the borders of Gaza into other countries as refugees. And therefore, what they are depending on is that, the Israeli army, they're saying that you should evacuate this place. But in the end, they end up bombing the places that they are evacuating to. So essentially, that's why it's a genocide. In every 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, there's a person killed there in Gaza. So subhanallah.
Mashallah, maybe after the end of our podcast, maybe if we're doing a 1-hour podcast, inshallah, easily 15 people would have lost their life. We were discussing this topic. That's how severe it is.
Yeah, in fact, some reports by the UN, they say that to rebuild, or at least to clear the debris in Gaza, right? It will take at least 14 years to clean what's the debris that's there in the Gaza Strip, with at least 100 trucks working every day, working every 24 hours. So imagine that. And on top of that, they are saying that it will take at least 20 years, and some reports say at least 80 years to rebuild Gaza itself. Subhanallah, can you imagine that? 80 years to rebuild everything.
80 years, huh? Is that right?
Yeah, 80.
Subhanallah.
But this is a report by the UN, the statistics shown by UN. You can, in fact, we can Google it up.
I think the
So-
key word here to show that her severity is that it's to rebuild. It's not even to advance, yeah? It's like to get back
Yes,
to the
yeah.
status on where they were before this.
Yeah, subhanallah.
Hmm.
So this is really heartbreaking, and it affects every one of us, to differing degrees lah, right? Perhaps I can share, the reason why we chose this topic. I chose this topic is because it really bothers me and my family members, when we see this, children the age of our children, they're suffering, they lose limbs, yeah, they lose limbs, and then you see graphic images of babies, babies, trapped under, rubble, the chest open wide, all these very graphic, detailed scenes, in your minds, because of these things that you are fed with every day. If you look at the news, just the news, and then you look at, the social media, these things happen. And in fact, one of my friends, one of my colleagues, in a meeting, she was sharing that her husband, it was deeply affected by this. So much so that, if I'm not mistaken, she said that her husband was asking questions like, why is this all happening? Why is this all happening? It's as if like he felt like there's no purpose of living your life now because they are suffering. So it really bothers some people to that extent. So really, we should be addressing this question, and we are trying our best to, inshallah, in this episode, we are trying to offer a solution based on the Quran and the Sunnah. What does the Sharia says about, how to deal with all these things, inshallah.
Yeah, I
is it-
think also that there's a general feeling of helplessness throughout the lands of the Muslims, everywhere else, even everywhere in the world. People are seeing it with their own eyes, in the age of social media, whereby it's very accessible, this information. You see graphic images, as Shami mentioned, but it appears that we don't have any means to affect the war there, despite our best efforts. Let's say what we do in our capacity, there's a general feeling of helplessness that nothing we can do will have an impact to the war there. So I think that's the general feeling that we laymen have, outside of the war, looking out from the outside.
And also, like, if
Yeah.
I mean, like, enemies of the deen of Islam also take this opportunity to spread their poison by saying that if God was all merciful, then why did He allow it to happen to you, to the Ummah of Muhammad? Some also say that. So my religion triumph over your religion because a lot of people, a lot of Muslims are dying. So that shows that my religion is true. So how do we respond to that? And those are poison doubts, yeah. And mashallah, I think the answers are easy actually, but maybe some of our viewers, they're not aware of those answers, yeah. And inshallah, maybe we try to uncover some of this, how to respond to this, and most importantly, how we as a person respond to this. Not so much about debating others, not so much about engaging in long hours conversation with others, but more to ourselves and how we can take care of ourselves, our health, our mental health, and also to our family and friends during this time of unprecedented human catastrophe that's taking place.
I think another one also is that a lot of thoughts that are going on in a lot of our circles today is people are asking like, where are the Muslims today? What are the Muslim countries doing? Technically, the Muslim population, we make up like 1/5 of the world population. Where are they now? So what are you just standing idle and doing nothing? So that's some of our thoughts that are going inside some of their heads. And I think also there's a general feeling like of like what is I saying is hopelessness from another angle as well. Is like, so there's a perception that, oh, all these people have all the wealth in the world. They control the media. They can manipulate this. They have the resources for the missiles and all these things. So how should we look at this as Muslims? That's the key as well, because the problem is when people look at the material means, that sometimes it affects their faith in Allah. So how can we look at it from the right way? I think this is also another angle that we want to speak about this as well. Another angle also is like we want to speak about this topic about boycotts. So this is something that we hear a lot. And then so one of the movements worldwide that has a lot of traction these days is this movement called the BDS, the boycott, divestments and sanctions movement. So this is getting a lot of traction, not just in Muslim countries but actually worldwide. And okay, there is that aspect as well. So some people are saying it's very effective and so on. But there's also a lot of confusion now. So what about us as the average Muslim? Should we boycott? There are also some people of knowledge who say we shouldn't boycott because of X, Y, Z. So sometimes we're in the middle, like we want to do something, but we can't do this, but we can do that. So sometimes we get confused, right? So this is one of the things we want to talk about. And also another angle as well, because this thing has been happening for so long, right? It's been 8 months since this ruthless onslaught, this inhumane kind of genocide that's happening. So I think another extreme that people have fallen into is that they start to feel desensitized. So in the initial few weeks, yes, the awareness was spreading. People were, sharing, spreading the awareness and making lots of dua and mashallah, alhamdulillah, there are lots of other silver lining from that. But over time, people are like, this one again. Sometimes these people start to think it's less important, right? So that's also, that's also something that we can see.
As
Yeah.
Muslims, when the Prophet taught us that if there's an oppression, we should try our best to admonish it. The least is with the heart, right? And we salute all you guys out there who's making that dua, that kun nazilah, mashallah, may Allah reward you, may Allah answer your prayer. But
I mean,
I think that what we think we have is this podcast session.
mm,
And it's a waste if we don't use it. Because it's a legitimate means to cascade the suffering and avoid desensitizing this issue, this tragic issue.
yeah, that's a good one. So speaking of that dua as well, there's also another poison that's there's that the thoughts that are plaguing people's thoughts these days. It's like, okay, we're making kunut nazila, but until when? Until when are we just gonna make dua? Until when are we just gonna be patient? That's it? Just be dua and patient. So what is the right way to see this? Is this the right thing to behave and think as Muslims or not? So I think this is another thing that we wanna discuss. And so okay, let's get right into it right now. So okay, with all that being said, right now, so all these things are happening right now. So why should we bother and what can we do about it? So how can we actually play our part in this whole issue that's surrounding us these days?
I think answering your question of why even bother to talk about the issue of the Palestinians is because the Palestinians, they are our brothers and sisters in Islam. Most of them are Muslims, right?
Yeah.
So the Prophet ﷺ, when we look in so many ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, praising brotherhood that is based on faith, that is upon the foundation of Tawheed and in Islam and Iman. And one such hadith that we can share with you, inshallah, is this hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, مثل المؤمنين في تودهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم مثل الجسد إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى له سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى. So the similitude of believers in regard to mutual love, affection, and fellow it's just feeling the sense of care for one another. It's like one body. When any limb of it aches, the whole body aches because of sleeplessness and fever. So this is our condition today. We are feeling it because there are brothers and sisters in Islam, right? Not just only for the Palestinians. Even if we look beyond that, in fact, right now our brothers and sisters in Islam, in Sudan, for example, they are suffering. There's a war going on in the country, and not to forget the people of Syria, and not to forget people of other places as well, right? So
Like
we
the
feel
Uyghurs
for
in
them.
China, for example.
Yeah,
Right?
the Uyghurs in China, the Indian Muslims, for example, right?
Mm.
So these are all a part of Muslims' life. So no believer can truly be a perfect believer unless they feel something for their brothers and sisters in Islam, because the Prophet ﷺ said, in a hadith, whoever believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last day, All right. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, then he should love for his brother what he loves for himself. And we want safety for ourselves. We want ourselves to be, living life peacefully, in comfort, so that our family members, our children, they can go to school, they can educate, we can provide them with education, we can provide for them, in terms of wealth, all these things, right? We also want this for them. This is a perspective that especially the Muslims, they have it. I don't know of any other people in any part of the world, or in any other religions, but correct me if I'm wrong, but that have this sense of togetherness, this that have this sense of brotherhood, that is deeply rooted in faith. Yeah, so this is
showing concern on this issue is actually a sign of iman that Allah has given.
Yeah.
So in a positive note, even though on this whatever negativity that we're having right now, is that's the first positive note that we should take care of. But
Correct.
Allah
That is one of the wisdoms.
has iman to us that make us concerned about this issue.
Yeah. So the starting off this one, it's important to note that we should feel hurt that these things happening. We should feel this pain. So those thoughts that are saying that Allah, sometimes these thoughts, this is what shaitan does, whisper in our minds, like Allah, Gaza lagi, this issue again. I know, move on lah. It's an old story. Please do not entertain those thoughts. Those are shaitan thoughts. So we should always feel this. However, as Muslims, we should know the right way to respond. So that's the key here. So we should have an emotional investment in this, just like Shahmi is saying. It's part of our iman to love for them what we love for ourselves. We love for their children to have safety, security, education, clean water, and so on. Right? We love for that. And also part of the Muslims, the thinking here is that the Prophet ﷺ likened that the sanctity of a Muslim's life is more honored and more sacred than Mecca, more blessed than the Kaaba, more blessed than this month, the months of Dhul Hijjah, and more blessed than the day of Eid itself. Right? Prophet ﷺ said that in the hadith in Al-Bukhari. So every single death, so we mentioned 37,000 deaths. Imagine every single one of those 37,000 is more sacred than all of the things we mentioned just now, including the Kaaba.
On the death, the number of death, right? I just want to bring the second positive note from this. It's a fatwa from Sheikh bin Baz when he was asked, what happened to those who were killed in missile attack during his lifetime. So say, inshallah, those are shaheed, shuhada. So we make dua to Allah that Allah grant the Muslim brothers, sisters, children who lost their life, even the non-Muslim children who lost their life, may Allah grant them the status of shuhada, of martyrs. Yeah.
Inshallah. And actually, I love to say this, what Amir is saying, because this also plants a different optimistic way of looking at it. In a way, if Allah grants them shuhada, martyrdom, death by martyrdom, they get like a green ticket to Jannah, just like that, mashallah.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, right, the suffering that they go through in life, it's very, very tough for decades. But how long will you live in Jannah? Is it 500 years? 1 million years? 35 billion years? It's khalidina fiha abada, mashallah. So in that sense, we should have that kind of optimism. And if you think about it, like we don't know how long we live, right? Maybe Allah, maybe 60, 70 years. It's 60, 70 years of effort, and we don't know if we're going to be accepted or not, right? So think about it as these children, mashallah, Allah give them that green ticket to paradise. And one of the hadith that for me, it's always resonate a lot. The Prophet ﷺ described that, a person who has had the worst suffering in this dunya, had the worst life, right? Allah dips that person in Jannah for just one moment, just for a while, right? Take him outside Jannah. Huh?
The best hadith.
Best hadith, right? So take him outside Jannah. So, oh my slave, have you felt any suffering? Say, no, by Allah, I've never felt any suffering. That's it. Totally forget. That's just one moment in Jannah. But, these martyrs, these shuhada, they're not there for one moment. They're there, khalidina fiha abada. MashaAllah. That should plant some hope in us, hope for us, inshallah. And not just for those who are passed away, right? Because we know in Islam, right, whenever Allah takes away something, there's always going to be a compensation that's way more than that. So we make dua that Allah grants them much better.
MashaAllah, I'd like to add on that point. If Allah takes, because there's a hadith, Rasulullah said that when Allah takes a safiya from a person, that someone that they really love, can be their parents, their children, their siblings, their friends, whoever, so dear to them. And if they are patient upon that test, then the reward is Jannah. So the important thing, we don't want to undermine the suffering that our brothers and sisters are facing in Gaza. We have never tested with that. Allah never tested with us with that. And may Allah don't test us with that. Subhanallah. But when suffering, when someone is suffering, the best way sometimes for you to console them is just to share the words, the kalam Allah and the saying of Rasulullah SAW. From there, may Allah grant them guidance, give them strength. Because that's the thing to hold on. That's the hope of Allah, the rope of Allah to hold, that gives hope. If you don't hold on to that, then you will dwell further down into depression, because there's nothing positive that will come up from this. But Allah will never make the life of any Muslim to waste. Will never, because life is a test. If you're successful in it, no matter who you are, what financial status you have, what lineage you have, you are entitled for the same top reward. But you must not let your emotion get the best of you. Rather, the Kitabullah and the Rasul and the Sunnah of Rasulullah must always be the one that guides you. If we don't hold to that, then we will be headless. We will not get success.
Yeah. Also, to add another positive glad tiding for the martyrs in a hadith in Bukhari, Rasulullah SAW mentioned that no one dies and finds good from Allah would want to come back to the dunya, except for the martyr. When the martyr sees the superiority of martyrdom, he would like to come back to the world and get killed in that way again for Allah's cause. That's how amazing the reward as a martyr that in the sight of Allah. We don't perceive it, but people who have died as a martyr, they experience this already in the afterlife, and the happiness that they experience, they want to come back and go through it over and over again. Subhanallah. That shows the superiority of the martyr.
SubhanAllah, you send this hadith, right? If you actually put the actual real world context, right? If you think about it, just think about any tragic death that has happened in Gaza, for example, right? Or you could have been one of the journalists who were targeted bombings, inside one of those vans. Remember that study? You could have been one of those people outside of Al-Shifa hospital who were rounded by the IDF. You could have been one of those people who were sitting in your apartments one day and then just things were collapsing on you. Imagine these people, like what Reza, if you quote that hadith into real world context, when they experience that, they would actually want to, I want to experience that again.
It's just unthinkable.
You cannot think about it, right? So, I do want to live in an apartment and just wait for that bomb to come. Oh, subhanallah, right?
It's not a normal death, right? It's a tragic death.
Yeah, it's a tragic death.
Yeah.
But because the reward is so great, I want to go through it again. Oh,
subhanallah. It's just an opposite perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
From us.
If I imagine that, it's like someone who ride on a roller coaster and then he wants to go to ride again, right? Just like
yeah.
Subhanallah.
You see, this is the thing. This is what puzzles a lot of non-Muslims out there. If you rewind many months back, when October's for after the first few weeks or first few months after the attack in October the 7th, as they say, they like to go back to that date, right? When the non-Muslims, even non-Muslims, they follow what's been happening in Gaza. I've seen people commenting a lot for example on Facebook and on Instagram. They're asking the same question, a similar question, but they are asking, how are they so patient? How are they so, seemingly they could go through this, because you can still see smiles on the children's faces. You still see people saying saying things that the utterance that come out from the people of Gaza, for example, it will not stray away from faith. For example, he's with Allah now. Allah is enough for me. So it's hard for them to understand this, but for Muslims it's a no-brainer, because we have a lot of hadith. For example, one hadith that comes to mind, was when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, for every hardship disease, worry, distress, harm, and grief that a Muslim faces, and even for every thorn that pricks them, Allah will expiate some of their sins through it. So everything that a Muslim goes through, be it physical pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, all these things, right? If you are patient, provided if you are patient, the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely give us a reward. So for example, we were talking about the what Rezat shared to us, mashallah, the mother who wishes to go back, right, to the moment where he or she is killed, and and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards him or her with the martyrdom, right? So what about the people who still live and are related to them? For example, their parents, or the children, seeing their maybe son or daughter killed and become martyrs, right? So the Prophet ﷺ also, there's a explicit hadith about this as well, where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if my slave is stricken with the death of a very close loved one, and then persevere hoping for the reward, then the Prophet ﷺ continues by saying, there is no reward with me for him except paradise. So it's a win-win situation for both of them. Like, you're not getting martyrdom, but because perhaps your son or your daughter, or your relative, was awarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that. But if you practice patience and hoping for Allah's mercy and reward, then you will also get paradise. So this is something amazing, in our deen. Nothing is lost lah.
It's like Prophet Musa, one of the Ulul Azmi, the greatest prophet, right? He was tested with a tyrant king. And you know what? When you can draw parallels with what the current happenings. People who claim to be the one who followed the teachings of Prophet Musa, but they are acting like the people who are the number one enemy of Prophet Musa right now. And Muslim right now, our Palestinian brothers and sisters in Gaza, they are taking a lot of the advice of what Prophet Musa was advising the children of Israel when Fir'aun unleashed his tyranny by killing all the men, the male, the babies. Prophet, when the children of Israel came to Prophet Musa for asking for advice for this great test, Prophet Musa just said this: what you need to do is just make dua to Allah and be patient. Make dua to Allah and be patient. Simple. And that's what Muslims are doing right now. You see mosques right across the globe. We're doing Kunut Nazilah in our Fardu prayers. MashaAllah. Keep it up, brothers. I think that's one of the least thing we can do as an ummah, right? And showing patience. The Palestinian people, honorable people of Palestine, they are setting the gold standard of patience right now. Wallahi, if we think we are a patient person, look at what they have to endure day in, day out. The loss of family life, the loss of property, the loss of health, and yet they're patient. Yet, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil, that's what one of the child was saying. A child was saying that. Subhanallah, that's gold standard. And a father that lost 3 child on the same day, and he just, Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward them with martyrdom. That's patient, gold standard. Subhanallah. If you want to know how much patience you should endure, this is a learning for all of us, that we can take heed from this. And we compare with the limited patience we have. If our child do something wrong, we quickly lose our cool, lose our temper, go mental. What they are.
Yeah, subhanallah.
We are telling our children who maybe disturb us from sleep, saying, hey, go to sleep. But the parents in Gaza, they're looking at their children that has passed away, telling their children, please wake up. Subhanallah. It's a complete different scenario that what we are seeing right now. And sometimes we take for granted all this thing that Allah has given us.
Yeah, subhanallah.
Yeah.
The thing is that crossed my mind when Shami was sharing this and what amazing. These are really inspiring responses. And these inspiring responses are not just noticed by Muslims, but also non-Muslims worldwide. And so one of the silver linings that we can see from this is that a lot of people are getting so inspired by this. They want to know what inspires these Muslims to think and talk and behave in this way. to see things from such an angle. And actually that drives them to read the Quran, read the Hadith, and many very influential people from the West have actually become Muslim because of this. And I think that's really amazing, right? I mean, that's a huge win for Islam. So
Yeah.
because of that, because they have very strong platforms, a very loud voice that they can reach out to a lot of people. I think there was one very famous lady, I think, right? She reads the Quran. I can't remember her name. Do you guys recall that she does like reflections on the Quran to find out what's going on, and then she became Muslim. I thought it's
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Okay.
The African American lady, I think.
yeah, the
Yeah.
African American lady. Yeah.
I forgot her name. Yeah.
Yeah, mashallah. I mean, that's amazing. And I think this is a really, it's a wake-up call also, because you see, it's through this that Allah grants his hidayah through this kind of issue. We're not saying that it's a good thing, but there's a greater wisdom in the long run. And that also probably indicates the weakness of us Muslims, because we're so weak in giving da'wah. So the mechanism in which Allah plants hidayah is through this means. So I think this is an amazing thing, lah, mashallah.
Mashallah.
And then also
Yeah,
like
correct.
when you talk on that point, right? Because when people are inflicted with calamity, sometimes people might go into depression, suicide. But you see that the will to survive by by the people of Gaza, mashallah, the amount of journey that they covered, they're living without any limbs. Nobody's getting, but their will to survive is there. Their survival
Yeah.
is strong.
Yeah.
They don't give up. They not even some of them refuse to leave the land.
Yeah. I think also
Wow.
one of the another very important practical silver lining here is that a lot of people are showing a lot more support for them in ways that even before this people couldn't see. And in fact, now people can see through the lies of the Zionist movement and so-called what they are saying,
Yeah.
right? It's so obvious, man. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. They're so clearly contradicting themselves. Oh, come on, man. And I think in the long run, this is planting the seed. So when people can see through the lies, it's almost as if Allah is planting the seed. So look, you can make you are all grown-up people now. You can decide what's right from wrong. And so probably that sets up the stage for us to give dawah, so that now they can see, oh yeah, okay, mashallah, maybe, right? So we don't know,
Yeah.
right, how Allah plants his hidayah to humanity.
It's
Yeah,
interesting you brought this Zionist issue, because like as Muslim, we know that Allah is most just. Allah will never allow the oppressor to just go scotch free. Will never. Even though from us, we might see, hey, they're still living like kings. Wallahi. Nobody lives a normal life after killing babies. Nobody can live a normal life after slaughtering pregnant women and babies.
Oof.
Nobody. Yeah, they will definitely have trauma, mental stress, mental health issues after with what they have done. And if they don't repent and Allah don't give hidayah to them, the punishment is more severe on the day of judgment.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
subhanallah.
So let's address this one question now. So these are common things people say, right? So patience until how long? Until how long do we remain patient? Anyone want to tackle this question?
Yeah, I think we can start by answering the question, straight to the point. There's a hadith reported by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, um, there is no Muslim who calls upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without sin or cutting family ties, but that Allah will give him one of three answers. Okay, he calls upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he doesn't sin and he doesn't cut family ties, and Allah may answer him with one of the three ways. Number one, he will quickly fulfill his supplication, meaning as soon as he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something, Allah will quickly give him what he asked for. Secondly, he will store it for him in the hereafter. So perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees it's going to be fitting for him, so he stores the dua in the form of perhaps in the form of shafa'at on the day of judgment. And thirdly, he will divert an evil from him similar to it. So they said, the companion said, in that case, we will ask for more. So the companion said, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, and Allah has even more. Allah has even more in store for you all. So meaning to say anything, we make dua, whenever we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will never go in vain. It will never be futile. It will always bring back something good to us. Because what we often hear is that, people, they seem like, maybe they don't say it out loud, but it seems like, they feel tired of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in the first place, they should ask themselves, right? We should ask ourselves, do we even make dua right? Do we even make dua, or we just feel like we make dua in our heads? We don't allocate a time in a day, or perhaps before sleep, during our salah, our salawat, our prayers, right? We don't even allocate special time for dua. But and then we claim that we are tired of making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But do we really make dua? And dua has for a dua to be answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are shurut, there are what do you call it in English,
Conditions.
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 conditions for that, right? For example, you need to you need to be doing sorry, you need to supply yourself, or nourish yourself with halal, from the halal wealth that you acquire. And also you need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely with your heart and with your mind, focus on the dua. And you need to be patient in it. For example, there's the hadith in Arba'in Nawawiyah, hadith number 9 or 10, I believe, where the Prophet ﷺ, he brings forth the example of a man who travels a long distance, and then he said, Yamuddu yadahi ila sama. And then he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, this person who's traveling for a long time, it's been a long time since he got out from his village or city. So one day he just extends his arms to the sky, and he said, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, oh Allah, oh Allah. And then but the Prophet ﷺ mentioned things that become an obstruction to his prayer, his dua, from being answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So among the things that he mentioned is that he is nourished with the haram. So how will Allah answer that? So if you nourish yourself with the haram, not only the haram bidatihi, like drinking khamr, drinking alcoholic drinks, or eating from the swine, the meat of the swine, not only that, but you buy things from haram income. So this is a lengthy discussion in and of itself, but what I'm getting at is that when you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make dua sincerely, because here it is mentioned that the traveler, he has been traveling for a long time, and probably he's been asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for many times before that. And the scholars, they say that, such as Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, yeah.
So if I can go ahead, Brother Shami's point is that use this opportunity right now to improve the way you make dua. Improve the way. Number one, sincerity. Improve the sincerity. Number two, make sure that you try your best to remove all the maksiat, so that Allah has there's a higher chance that your dua will be answered. And also plan your dua in the best times, the final third of the night, on the day of Jumat. I mean, you improve. I know, mashallah. A lot of people has made dua, mashallah. That's really good. But sometimes we don't see it happening. Ask that question back to us, right? How can I improve that? How can I improve? How can I remove sins? Things like that, yeah.
In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, right, very explicitly what Brother Amir says, right? Change yourself, right? Get away from maksiat, all these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala indeed that will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. So if you want to see real change in yourself, not only real change in the community, real change to the Muslim Ummah now, right now, we change what is within ourselves first. And not only us, we must also, reach out to our brothers and sisters, so that they also change themselves. So this is,
Okay, so that's really good. Mashallah. So the dua, so the key takeaway here is don't stop making dua, never lose hope in dua. And so Ibn Qayyim has a statement on this. To summarize it, he says that, you see, dua is the weapon of the believer, but the weapon in and of itself, it has conditions to be effective. So, for example, a sword, right? You can't, if you give a sword to my 6-year-old son, we probably won't do much damage with it unless it's more to damage to himself, right? Probably, right? So it says when your arm is strong, when your technique is right, when the sword is handled in the right way, then it will have an effect. So it's all about having the right conditions for dua. But I want us to take a step back though. So coming back to the question now, talking about patience, right? Until when are we gonna just remain patient like this? When is the help of Allah gonna come? You want to tackle this?
Yeah.
Let's
Can
put
I
some
can
perspective here.
quote, because I like
Will
to
it come?
quote this based on people who claim to be followers of Prophet Musa.
Mm.
I just want to quote what Prophet Musa did, yeah, because we are Muslim, we are closer to Prophet Musa. When it gets to when the children of Israel was cornered, they have reached their limit. Wallahi, their believing women, have seen themselves, their daughters, being treated like animals, being harassed, humiliated, done to whims and desire of the kuffar. And they've seen their father, their husbands, their children, their babies being slaughtered. Subhanallah. How much can you go on? How much can you take when you see that? So they went to see Prophet Musa, asking Prophet Musa, make dua to Allah. Make dua to Allah that Allah do something about this. And Prophet Musa made a dua that Allah destroy Fir'aun. And Allah answered his prayer. But the interesting part is, as Ibn Kathir mentioned, that dua was answered for sure, definitely. But was answered 40 years after the dua was made.
40 years, huh?
40 years.
You're a 7-year-old
Yeah.
child making that dua. Allah answered that when you're 47 years old.
Yeah, and the context is, this is Fir'aun, the worst tyrant in the whole of history, worse than what do you call him? BB, worse than BB, yeah.
BB.
Baby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They call him
subhanallah.
baby.
And we are no Musa. None of us is Musa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's why
really.
the scholars mentioned that. That's why the story of Musa is always repeated in the Quran, was to help also, this is not the first time that the Muslim Ummah faced this type of oppression. In fact, in the early days of Makkah, Rasulullah SAW and his companions also face very, very severe oppression from the people of Makkah, from the disbelievers of Quraysh.
Yeah.
They tortured them, and the way Allah comforted the Prophet is through narrating these lessons
True.
or stories from the previous nations. Like, that's why Prophet Musa's story comes out a lot in the Quran, and essentially that's a way that Allah comforts the believers in general, also Rasulullah SAW specifically, that if you see the stories of the prophets of the past, a lot of them have to endure patience in whatever they're facing against the tyrants at their time, or against the calamities that befell them. As we all know, that prophets, they face the most severe tests compared to the normal believers, for example. And you see that Allah puts examples in the Quran so that we can gain inspiration that patience is actually an act of ibadah which carries a lot of weight in the sight of Allah, in the eyes of Allah. That this is essentially what Allah wants from the believing slaves. For example, if I want to quote what the reaction of Prophet Ayub when he was faced with adversity, for example. He was always patient, and he didn't even mention his calamity to Allah. He said that he said, "Inni masanniya dur wa anta arhamur rahimin." So he just ask Allah that he is very in distress, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. So he didn't. His attitude is always in a positive, but always patient. For example, and that's therefore in the following ayah, that's why Allah mentioned. He responded to Prophet Ayub, and this is an example and a reminder for the believers. وَذِكْرَى لِلْعَابِدِينَ. So essentially, this is what Allah wants to tell us in the Quran, that He places all of these stories of the prophets, what they went through, what they faced, and what their reaction is to their calamities and the like. For example, if Prophet Musa as well. and how they were facing these calamities, and how Allah granted them victory after that. So that is a big inspiration
Yeah, there's an ayat
for
of
That's
us.
why the
Quran
prophets,
that directly mentioned
yeah,
this actually. So it is Surah Hud, ayat number 120. Where Allah says, وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. We narrate to you the
mashallah.
stories of the messengers of the past so that we strengthen your heart. So Allah addressing Rasulullah SAW. So these
So
stories actually inspired Rasulullah SAW. And these are not
mm,
like, long distance stories. These are real life case studies to inspire you. So
yeah.
Yes.
so it's important for us to not be detached from these stories so that we have this hope in Allah.
Mashallah.
That's why the
Yeah.
Prophet SAW, he said in a hadith, he said, Inna sabra ma'an nasr. Indeed,
Mm,
patience comes with victory. So patience is
mm,
always, digandingkan lah, comes with victory. And if you look into the seerah of the Prophet SAW, you will see lots and lots of this type of stories, which we can see it's so similar to what's happening now, to the people of Gaza. Right? For example, the family of Yasir, the family of Yasir, including his wife and son, Sumaya, his wife and son Ammar. So just to give a little bit of background to the listeners out there, Ammar, sorry, Yasir, they are under the care and the protection of Bani Makhzum. It's one of the tribes in Mecca. And some of the notable companions that was from Bani Makhzum, it's like the wife of the Prophet Sallallahu Salama, and Khalid bin al-Walid. So these two companions, great companions, come from the tribe of Makhzum. And another person that comes to mind when we mention Bani Makhzum is Abu Jahal, whose real
mm,
name is Amr bin Hisham. So he's also
mm,
a Makhzumi. So when the family of Yasir, so the family of Yasir served this tribe for X number of years. One day, after they embraced Islam, the family of Yasir embraced Islam, and one day, Abu Jahal heard that Yasir became a Muslim, he and his family. So he stormed to Yasir's house to protest his family's conversion to Islam. So they struggled a bit until what happened was, he finally dragged Yasir, Sumaya, and Ammar under the hot sun, scorching hot sands. Just imagine Makkah today, 50 degrees Celsius. It can easily reach 50 degrees Celsius. And Sumaya, because of that, became the first martyr in Islam, because Abu Jahal and his koncho, his people lah,
henchman.
a henchman, yeah,
Mhm.
henchman, koncho lah. So killed Sumaya with the most despicable, way imaginable. In Malay we call it sula lah. I don't want to say it here, but subhanallah, it's a very very a very bad way to die. But in that time, in that time, Islam was so weak. During that time, there was no force to support Prophet Muhammad SAW. There was no army to support him. Therefore, when the Prophet SAW, he passed by the family of Yasir, he could only grieve, and the only words that came from the blessed mouth, the blessed lips of the Prophet SAW was Sabran ala Yasir, inna maw'idakum al Jannah. He said, "Be patient, O family of Yasir, for indeed you are promised paradise." So indeed, we look back into what the Prophet SAW said in the hadith, "Inna sabr ma'al nasr." Indeed, with patience comes victory. So he's telling us, he's telling the family of Yasir, bear patient, and you will receive the greatest victory of all, which is being put in Jannah. So when we look at when we reflect on the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ with our situation today, right? The Muslim nations today are similar to the situation of Muslims during Islam's early days in Makkah, like we mentioned before. Although we have nations, we have powers, right? But our powers are significantly, diminished. We are as if we are powerless. So there's a qaida in fiqh where it sounds like this: wujuduhu ka'adamihi. Its existence is as if like it's non-existent, even though it's there, but it's useless lah. So this is the condition of us today, right? So people, this begs the question that many people ask, for example, like, people asking why we cannot send armies to Gaza to help them out, and then they ask like why certain Arab countries can't send troops to help the people of Gaza. So this is a very complicated, actually not really complicated. If we do a little bit of research, then we will know. We are indeed governed by a set of rules and regulations, international sets rules and regulations that make us unable to act, for the benefit of our brothers and sisters there in Gaza. But the hadith that comes to mind, is the hadith where the Prophet SAW, he mentions the condition of the people, who are living close to the day of judgment, which is us. So the Prophet SAW, he said, the peoples will soon summon one another to attack you, as people when eating invite others to share their dish. So what does it mean? The enemies of Islam will come to attack you, and they will call other their allies to attack you as well. Okay, and then someone from the companion of the Prophet SAW asked, will that be because of our small numbers at that time? So the Prophet SAW said, no, you will be numerous at that time. Okay, but you will be scum and rubbish like that, carried down by a torrent in the sea. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take fear of you from the breast of your enemy. So your enemies are not even afraid of you, even though you're threatening them, all these things, right? They won't be afraid. And put al-wahan into your hearts. So someone asked, what is al-wahan, ya Rasulullah? So he replied, the love of the world and dislike of death. So this is our condition today. We have to be honest with ourselves. If we were to choose death and life, we will choose life in this dunya, right? So many of us are like that. So the Palestinians, they are one of a kind people. They, like Brother Amir said, they teach us important lesson that we must not fear death, and we must always be patient, bear patient in every difficulty that we face. The difficulties that they face.
There are people who are living with dignity. Sometimes we are a comfortable people, privileged people.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't think we are equal in dignity to what they are actually showcasing at the moment.
Correct. Subhanallah. Yeah.
Maybe
So
on the options of confrontational option by Muslim nation, without just a brief answer to that, right? We have in the past chooses the confrontational option. I think 3 to 6 times, depending on the coalition that happened. And in short, all the wars we lost. And after we lost more land. We lost more people and more land. In fact, on one of the wars, we almost won. But then the enemy trigger the help button from their strong allies, and that leaves us no chance after that. So we have gone through the confrontational option. It was not successful in the past. I guess that's giving the benefit of the doubt to our leaders. Maybe that's the reason why we are going more to the diplomatic route at the moment. Yeah.
And after this is we still can hear the Muslim still question, when is the help of Allah will come, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, this question is not new. It is in the Quran. Mata Nasrullah, right?
Yeah.
When is the help of Allah will come? This is, I think, quite not easy for me, not easy to answer this kind of question. But the help of Allah will come with tests and trials. If we reflect upon it, we must be patient, just as the brothers were discussing just now. And subhanallah,
Yes.
our brothers in Palestine,
to finish off the verse that Brother Aziz was quoting, it's in Surah Al-Baqarah, right?
Yeah.
Verse number 264. Verse number 264.
14.
Okay.
214.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Verse 214. When they were asking, when will the help of Allah come? When will the help of Allah come? And then the answer to that is Ala inna nasrallahi qarib. Indeed, the help of Allah is very near, but we perceived it as far away because of our own weakness. Because human beings, they are creatures who are love istijal. They love to
Hasty.
hasten things up. Yeah, hasty. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The help of Allah is near. We
Yeah,
only need to ask him.
I think the context of the ayah is important. So the early part,
Yeah, yeah.
Allah questions us: do you think that you enter paradise before trials will not come, such as those who came before you? So the
This
context,
is the before the ayat.
this the same ayat, correct.
Yeah.
So Allah described it as these people in the past, they were touched by severe poverty and hardship, and they were shaken to the point that even their messenger, this is a messenger, this is highest level of person, even in the messenger and the people around him who believe, they are the ones who ask, Mata Nasrullah, when is the help of Allah gonna come? These are the best people in the sight of Allah, way better than you and me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
This
still,
question is not new.
correct. This question is not
Not new
new. These
question.
are the people of the highest iman. They are asking this question, and Allah assured them, help of Allah is near.
Subhanallah. And
I-
therefore, actually, the quality of patience, like just rewinding back, actually is needed just to change our mindset. It's needed in our life until we meet Allah, actually. In everything that we face, whether it is very severe war or our own personal challenges, for example, or remaining istiqamah on the path of obedience to Allah, that patience is to every of these aspects is needed. Therefore, that's why when a person enters paradise, this is in Surah Ar-Ra'd, ayah number 24, the angels will greet them saying, Salamun alaikum bima sabartum. Fani'ma uqbad dar.
Mashallah.
So patience is a quality that you just have to expect that you must try and strive towards, and not say that this is a last resort, for example. So that's
Yeah.
a change of mindset, I think. Yeah.
And also in this context, patient, right? Patience is not just enduring, being tolerant to whatever they are being tested with, but patient also withstanding, avoiding yourself, withhold yourself from further making the situation worse. Yeah, from creating gaps of diversion in the ummah. If you think that your action is not going to actually help the cause, the problem, then stay away from, restrain from it. It's not going to help. Yeah. So that's also part of it. That in times of fitna, it's important for you to apply for all of us. Don't create animosity among Muslim nations, among leaders and the subjects. No, it doesn't help. It won't help. Make dua to Allah. Allah guide our leaders to give the best action
Solution.
to solve this. That's even a better option.
Yeah. I want to share a story about this question, like when is the help of Allah going to come? This is a very beautiful story from the Sirah of the Prophet ﷺ. So somebody asked this question to the Prophet ﷺ, and his name is Khabbab bin Al-Arat radiallahu anhu. So Khabbab, do you know his story? Do you know how he was treated by the Quraysh? Have you heard his story? How the Quraysh used to
Yeah.
torture him?
Yeah. His backside used to be burned, right? With a burning hot rod or something.
Correct.
Which
So they had
subhanallah.
burning coals, like
Burning
burning
coals, yeah.
coals, and then they would lie him down on those coals and they would step on his body. So
Subhanallah.
So he would have back marks, like actual visible holes in them. SubhanAllah. So he's tortured very, very severely. So it's not a small torture. So then he actually went to the Prophet ﷺ during these early days, and he actually asked the Prophet ﷺ, which a lot of us are asking today, will you not ask for the help of Allah? Oh, this is asking very, very like
Yeah.
that plea for help. So the Prophet ﷺ, that time he was actually leaning at the Kaaba. And when Khabbab asked this question, the Prophet ﷺ stood straight, and his face actually turned angry. And he told Khabbab bin Arat, he said, among the nations before you, a man will be put into a ditch that was dug for him, and a saw, like a gergaji, like a saw, be put over his head, and he'll be cut into two pieces, and he will not give up his religion. You will have also a man who will be combed by iron combs, combs of iron that will remove flesh from his bones and his nerves, and still they will not abandon his religion. So the Prophet is implying, see, people before you have been inflicted with worse. The Prophet ﷺ then reminded us, by Allah, this religion, Islam, will prevail until a traveler from Sana'a in Yemen to Hadramaut will fear none but Allah, or except for the wolf who will attack his sheep. Unfortunately, you are a people who are impatient and hasty. He was actually scolding Khabab for that torture that he was going through. It wasn't a small torture. So,
Yeah.
small. So actually, it was actually quite a severe reminder for us as well. So the companions used to go through some really, really harsh times, and still the Prophet ﷺ would remind them, there are greater times to come. And in fact, there's a lot of reminders in the Quran that it's a fact actually. So people are seeing that, that these believers are spending billions, iron domes and all these technology, AI, all this very
Mm.
sophisticated tech, right? But you know what? Allah already said in Surah Al-Anfal, those who disbelieve will spend their wealth to hinder men from the path of Allah. And you know what? They will continue to spend it. Allah said it already. It's a fact.
Yeah.
It's
But
a
you know
fact.
what? And then Allah
Yeah.
also says the fact, in the end, it will be an anguish for them. They will be
Mm.
defeated. That will be a source of regret for them. In Surah Al-Imran, Allah says that thing the same thing that they thought they were going to earn victory in the akhirah, this will be the biggest regret for them. So, we have to remind us, yes, okay, they might have nuclear weapons, resources to the media,
They spend
international support.
billions of dollars.
Yeah, they spend billions of dollars. But you know what? Allah doesn't grant victory through these things. Allah grants
Mm.
victory through iman. No, and then Allah reminds us how many times kam min fi'atin qalilatin ghalabat fi'atan kathiratan bi'idhnillah. How many times when a small army has defeated a huge army by the will of Allah, right?
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
what we have
Subhanallah.
to remember, right? So
Subhanallah.
actually, what Allah is reminding us is something this ayah, I love this ayah, Surah Al-Imran. This is just innama dhalikumu shaitanu yukhawwifu awliya'ah. This is just
Mm.
shaitan trying to make you fear his enemies. He's just trying to put your thoughts. Why? So that you will lose hope in Allah. You will lose your trust in Allah. These are all tricks that shaitan does to harm our aqidah. Because once our aqidah is lost, we feel we lost hope in Allah, then shaitan has won. We might not
Inshallah.
have won the battle, but shaitan has won, and that's the worst defeat for us, who's not even on the
Yes.
battlefield. Subhanallah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
Another lesson that I can draw from the story of Khabbab bin Arat is that although it's permissible to ask for a pious person to make dua for you, but it's better for you to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly and also bear patience in whatever difficulty you're going through, right? Because there's another hadith, I think it's worth mentioning also, but where the Prophet SAW, he was a lady, a woman came to him SAW and said to him, I am epileptic. I think most of you guys have heard of this before. I'm epileptic, she said, and when I have episodes, my body becomes uncovered. So supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me. So what she intends to ask the Prophet SAW, she wanted the Prophet SAW to ask Allah so that Allah
Right.
heals her from the epilepsy, right? So what did the Prophet SAW say? So the Prophet SAW said to her, if you wish, you can be patient and be guaranteed paradise. And if you wish, I can supplicate to Allah to cure you. So what did she say? She said, I will be patient. However, my body becomes uncovered. So supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instead that my body does not become uncovered when I have these episodes. And so Prophet supplicated for her, and she continued to live like that because she wanted to get the reward of Jannah. So this is, I think, quite similar, although the severity is quite different, where Khabbab is, I think, is much more severe in terms of the, but ala kulli hal, it shows that the Prophet SAW, champions, people, how do you say this? Like menggalakkan, like
Encourage.
encourages the companions and all of us to have patience,
Of a video I saw on Gaza. So one Palestinian woman, her house collapsed. So they managed to unearth her from the rubble. You know what was her first, while they were taking her away to the ambulance? You know what was her first request?
What was it?
Where bring my niqab. Cover
Wah,
Mm.
inshallah, tabarakallah.
Mashallah.
Oh, mashallah, he was
Mm.
with blood, everything. Cover me. That was what her response was. Subhanallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah, I remember very early on also they were sharing a lot of messages that some of them were sleeping with their hijab on because they don't know that
Mm.
they will wake up or not. They could be killed overnight.
Mashallah, tabarakallah.
Subhanallah.
So they want to make sure that when their bodies are discovered, that they are not uncovered. Wow, that's really something else, man.
It's
Something else.
Yeah.
Amazing. Huh?
What?
going to sleep not knowing that you will be awake the next day, essentially.
And
Yeah.
true, and still, despite you're going to die, you still have your modesty. Wow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a powerful thing to think about, huh?
Subhanallah.
Still, you don't want to displease Allah, right? Even in that time.
Ah, subhanallah. There's one ayah that motivates me a lot in these kind of times. In Surah Al-Insan, where Allah reminds us, "Nahnu khalaqnahum wa shaddadna asrahum." It's we who created them and we made them strong. وَإِذَا
Mm.
شِئْنَا بَدَّلْنَا أَمْثَالَهُمْ تَبْدِيلًا. If we will, we can just replace them, totally replace. So actually, we should remind ourselves, if Allah wants to switch all these, Bibi and his henchmen and his minions, it can happen, right?
Yeah.
So it's something we should put our trust in Allah. Allah is, if with His will, it's happening in the wisdom that He knows best.
Mm.
Yes.
Putting your trust in Allah to solve this problem. And I think everyone has seen it. You trust the world powers, they betray you. You trust and nothing's happening.
Nothing's happening.
No tangible issues. That shows that all creations are weak. Yeah, you can find for the all the solutions, the mechanism that towards goodness, but at the end of the day, your reliance is only on Allah to solve your issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about one. I want to ask this question now. One very common thing now. Let's talk about boycotts. So this is a very common thing that's happening right now. What is our approach on this? Should we start boycotting products which support Israel, for example? So what's our stance as Muslims? What's the right way to behave?
Okay, Masha, I think one of the Jabatan division of Fatwa in Malaysia, one of the states, actually issued out a good article about this, and they started to say that boycotts happened in the time of Prophet Muhammad, where they're boycotting people or business transaction. And the famous issue about boycotting people is perhaps one of the Sahabat, right? He didn't go for war, and he came back and he didn't lie because Allah's gonna expose him. So Rasulullah said, okay, nobody's saying,
Yes, this is Ka'ab bin Malik,
Yeah.
is it?
yeah. Was it 40 days, 30 days? Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
example of boycott actually does happen in the time of Muhammad. But however, from the article, say that boycott has two. I'm just simplifying it. Yeah, there's two level. You can do it at a national level where a country impose sanction embargoes, and if that happens, you have to follow whatever the
That
country.
becomes wajib on you if the country imposes that, right?
That's right.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean you don't have your preference. You can have your preference. For instance, I don't want to buy products from certain countries. That's all within your limit. Yeah, you can do that, no problem. But you cannot because there's no orders, rulings coming from authorities, so you cannot instigate it to others, force others to do it. And if others doesn't do it, you can't like blame them, you harass them, you shame them. No, you can't do that. You know, Muslim, we are fair people. We are just people. There are rights to other people that if Islam has guaranteed that rights to them, don't violate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw a clip the other day that the boycotters went a bit overboard in the sense that there were people buying coffee in Starbucks and they started to hurt these people, like physically hurt these people.
Mm.
So I think this happened in one of our neighboring countries. So yeah,
Subhanallah.
so it's going to a level that has become overboard. So that's why knowledge of the rulings is important. That at the moment there is no official boycotting requirement from our countries, but you can do it, but you cannot force people to do it. That's just the
Boycott is not an act of. It should be an act of non-violence, right?
yeah
Mm.
yeah
Just don't
exactly
buy
exactly.
products. Not We are
Exactly. Yeah.
I think the example that is a quote is very important because it shows that as Muslims, because we're doing this for the sake of Allah. So if you want to do something for the sake of Allah, you don't do that by displeasing Allah. So hurting Muslims, hurting other people, not Muslims, any human being, just like that, that is displeasing Allah. So there's an irony behind it. You are doing this because of the violence that's happening, and how do you do that? You enact your violence upon other people. What? you know?
more violent.
Yeah, so yeah, that doesn't quite check out. It's kind of like what they're doing, right? So
Correct.
they're
Yeah.
getting sympathy because of the genocide that's happening to them. So what do they do now? They commit genocide. Come on,
Yes, well,
And
Yeah.
for them,
yeah, in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, he
you.
told us in Surah Al-Ma'idah, he said, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا يَعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. And do not let your hatred towards a certain group of people prevent you from being just. Be just. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, that is nearer to righteousness, that is nearer to taqwa. And fear Allah, indeed Allah is fully aware of what you do. So justice is a part of taqwa. So if you claim that you are a people of taqwa, if you want to be a people of taqwa, then you have to be just even to your enemies.
Mm. So
Right.
to wrap up what Ame is sharing, I think it's a very important point. I think it's a very balanced view. So if you know that you're purchasing or supporting certain products may support that, then by all means you can refrain yourself. There's no harm in that. Because clearly economic how do you say it? Economic sekatan
Warfare.
uh, huh?
Sanctions.
Restriction.
yeah, restrictions. Yeah, it does impact them.
Restrictions.
There is impact because we can see that happening, right? There are some countries which are there's some companies which are kind of suffering because of this. So yeah, I mean it does create that. And in fact, the beauty of this is that it creates opportunity for you to support Muslim businesses who offer
Correct.
equally good or even better services. And now
Yeah.
that you are supporting them and more people are supporting them, they have more funds to advance their products. So alhamdulillah, there's an opportunity in that. Just don't go overboard in terms of harming others and making it a fatwa. So, oh, you must, like for example, right? Something you cannot declare something haram just because you have news that's supporting that. The product itself, it's halal. That so you don't make
Yeah.
fatwas from this. That's
That's right.
If you say like the non-Muslim in Malaysia, in general, not the specific cases, they are people that we need to protect. They are not enemies, Just to be clear, they are protected by the law and also by our religion. So don't trespass, don't violate that rights. Whatever rights that Islam has given upon them, do not trespass that. Yeah, they are not enemies. They're not Muslim in our country.
Yeah. So in essence, boycott with knowledge and not emotions.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. I also want to draw attention on the hadith that Shami quoted just now, that all these nations are ganging up on us, and the root cause of this is, even though we are big in number, but we're kind of just like froth in the ocean, quantity without quality. Why? Because we love the dunya so much and we hate death. And so the root cause of this, I think, coming back to the point where Ame mentioned about the issue of warfare that happened in the past. You talk about Muslim countries are not taking action. Okay, let's come with a hypothetical situation now and say that the country declare war. All right, leave your stuff, go to the battlefield tomorrow. Will you go?
Be honest with ourselves, huh?
Be honest with yourself. Are you gonna do it? Your company tell you to go business trip. Also, sometimes you paid business trip, right? Or are you gonna be like the people of Bani Israel, the one who they say,
yes.
what's the story again? Jalut
The one,
and Talut and Jalut. Right?
also Jalut and the one that when Prophet Musa told them to invade, go into Baitul
Jerusalem.
Maqdis, and they refused to do it.
Sami'na wa
They say-
asayna. We hear,
Yeah.
but it's so I don't wanna. So there's another group that came after Prophet Musa, right? So we have been shoot from our land. We gotta fight.
Yeah, exactly.
And then falamma kutiba alaihimul qital tawallaw illa qalilan minhum. Then when the command came, all of them turned away. Just talk on it. Talk. Riff raff. And then go to war. No lah, you go lah. We all cannot. Not for me. It's important to assess.
It's easy, right? But when the table is turned onto you, That's where whatever is hidden inside you gets displayed in the public. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not
I
not.
remember, I remember there's this one quote dia kata it was in Malay, something like kita selalu berseru untuk berjihad, tapi ramai di kalangan kita nak berjihad melawan selimut, nak pergi solat subuh di masjid pun gagal. So
Oof.
have you heard this kind of
Yeah.
phrase? Okay, I'll
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah, yeah.
translate it the best way I can. We all want to go and fight in the battlefield, but we fail to fight the comfortable blanket in just for the sake of going to the masjid for Fajr prayer. Even that you fail. What, go to war? You know?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That is already a sign.
Yeah, that's a sign.
Sometimes
Subhanallah.
the events actually is Allah's just trying to hide your deficiency, your shortcoming. Yeah,
That's another way of saying it.
you're not there yet. You're not there yet. Yeah, it doesn't mean we don't improve ourselves. We definitely improve ourselves. Yeah,
Yeah.
if we go for ourselves, for our leaders. Yeah, continue with that. But sometimes the reality is we are not ready. We individually not ready.
Yeah. So what else can we do to wrap up our discussion today? What are some easy tips? So I think for me, I would say also to encourage people to continue raising awareness about the issue so that we don't become desensitized of that. Or don't get bored of it. We need to fight off that temptation and say, oh, Gaza again, I'm bored of it. No, don't get that. We need to feel this sense of urgency that we still love our brothers and sisters, despite all the reminders about patience and about the rewards that Allah will recompense for them. We still recognize this as a huge oppression to make. But what I want to ask is that what level of how can we spread the awareness? I mean, because there's another side of it as well. People are sharing some pretty gruesome imagery about what's happening right now. What do you guys think? Should we also be sharing those images to our friends and family?
I think it's just too accessible, too rampant. The videos is making their rounds, right? So, but I think it's a challenge for parents, especially to trying to some of your kids might be old enough, teens, late teens, that they can actually digest what's going on. But some, if they're still young, they are still in some say la la land, right? So maybe not best. It's not. I don't think it's the best way to show all these graphic images. But also want to touch on that issue, like on radicalism, because when you they feel helpless, right?
That's a good point.
They go turn to these keyboard warriors, these keyboard instigators, yeah, telling people to pack their bags and do this and do that. Wallahi, this is something we need to be careful. We need to also be mindful of the youth around us. Give them the proper guidance. Now, if they have the determination, the passion to do more, yeah, then let them sign up for the army, for the police, for instance. Yeah, there's a lot of means for them to vent it out. Yeah, not through the Khawarij movement. All of us know the ISIS, the Al Qaeda. That's going. Yeah. So be careful of the youth. Make sure you let them, you channel that anger correctly, and the best way to channel that is to give them education as what the prophet and the companions, the Salafus Saleh, would react in such situation. Important.
Yeah. And actually, yeah, you do see people starting to come out with ideas that now it's the freedom of information is very wide. So it's not easy to control it in that sense. So people are coming up with different ideologies to say that, oh, this is against, you should say something about it against the governments of your country, for example, or this and that. So trying to spread uh making people disattached, or making people not in a good way in that sense, right? So I think the key here is coming back to knowledge, the authentic knowledge, and looking for the correct teachers who we learn about the names of Allah, the realities of the fitnah in this dunya. Go back to the classical knowledge that we know that was transmitted to us from Rasulullah SAW and his companions as well. So that we know how to act in the face of when people come up with a false arguments, we know how to react and not follow that, for example. So that's important as well. Go back to knowledge in every situation, even despite this war in Gaza. Go back to knowledge. That's one tip I would perhaps share as well.
And you can also give the stark reminder, like actually like all this the Khawarij movement like ISIS and Al Qaeda, they have a similar modus operandi called like the extreme Zionists. Like you hear like some of the far right Zionism, the extreme Zionists, they say the reason why we can finish up Gaza, finish up Rafah, is because all of them voted for Hamas, so we can clean sweep everyone.
Yeah.
Legitimate targets.
Mm.
Isn't that, okay? Now you got the idea, yeah? This is exactly what ISIS mentioned when they say why did you create acts of terrorism in public transport in the UK? And they said, because the people voted for that government. So meaning all the public are legitimate targets. Are they not the same?
Yeah.
It's
Just put it
very
into
dangerous.
context. They view that people who commit sins, major sins, as act of kufur. So it sort of justifies their actions for themselves. But this is not the stance of the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah.
And also wrote the books, chapters of rules of engagement. Not easy. It requires a lot of learning.
So it goes back to brother Faisal and brother Reza's point, to learn authentic knowledge from trusted scholars. So on that note as well, we also encourage one another, first and foremost, a reminder for myself to strengthen our knowledge on qada wal qadar, the predestiny. But because many people fail to understand predestiny, and as a result, they fell into a plethora of different mental illnesses such as anxiety, depression, and all these things, right? Because because they fail to understand that everything has been predestined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we look into the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in many places, and one of which in Surah Al-Hadid, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, ما أصاب من مصيبة في الأرض ولا في أنفسكم إلا في كتاب من قبل أن نبرأها إن ذلك على الله يسير. No calamity or blessing occurs on earth or in yourselves without being written in a record, Lawh Mahfuz, before we bring it into being. So everything has been written by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the reasoning. Why did he, one of the main reasons for him to do that, said, لكي لا تأسوا على ما فاتكم ولا تفرحوا بما آتاكم والله لا يحب كل مختال فخور. We let you know this so that you neither grieve over what you have missed or lost, nor boast over what he has granted you. For Allah does not like whoever is arrogant and boastful. So this is the thamara, or the fruit of learning about qada wal qadar, predestination, right? So this is very, very important to keep our self, our mental self in check, rather than, of course, going to a psychiatrist, psychologists, doctors, what have you, who are well versed in modern science is good as well. But before that, I think preventing this from happening must be on top of our list. And one of the ways to do this is by seek knowledge, especially in qada wal qadar.
Mashallah. I have one reminder as well on that note on qadar. What we are seeing right now is one snapshot in history. So all this violence that's happening in that region actually was triggered around 100 years ago, probably less than that, I think, right?
Yeah.
Almost 80 years actually.
Huh?
And it's a funny story to that.
Oh, okay.
How many years?
Okay, just quick one, because there's a kurafat, I say kurafat, a superstitious in among in Judaism, that they believe that their whatever kingdom they have, it will always crumble after the 80 years mark.
Ah,
Yeah. They believe that they're
Mm.
cursed, right? Something like that, right? They're because
From
of
all history, from the time of Prophet Sulaiman, Daud Sulaiman, Sulaiman,
okay.
they say that it's 80 years, the Maccabean era, all these things. It's 80 years. So
So
they're
they're
vicious.
fulfilling their own mm,
Prophecy.
prophecy,
yeah.
superstition.
So all this
Yeah.
started like really ramped up. What year was it? Well, like all this
1917, if I'm not mistaken, 1970, but the independence was 1948, right? November was 1948.
post
48,
World War II,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it's less
yeah.
than it's actually like half a century what we're seeing right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember reading, studying this on comparative religion when our lecturer talked about Judaism. Actually, if you look at the history of Judaism, they haven't actually had a consolidated government since King Dawood, okay, Prophet
Mm,
Dawood,
Yeah.
King David.
mm,
You're right.
This
mm,
was
Betul.
way before Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It's thousands of years back,
Yeah.
right? So for
Yeah.
thousands of years, they did not have any government. They didn't have any superpower. They didn't have this kind of. So now we're looking at this point of history. These few decades, and we're seeing this. Trust in the plan of Allah. Right? There's a much greater things to come. So speaking of
Mm.
greater things to come, one very important thing that we should remember is that the greatest fitna of this dunya has not yet come. What is that
Yeah.
fitna?
Fitnah of the
mm.
Dajjal.
Al-Masih
Fitnah of
Dajjal.
Dajjal. Correct. So the Prophet ﷺ says every single prophet that came would actually warn his followers about Dajjal. That's how serious it is. And it has not come yet. So what we're seeing right now from Bibi and his friends is nothing compared to Dajjal. So this is actually quite a telltale sign for us. And in fact, what we're seeing right now, when we're seeing like people who when we maybe they're supporting these Zionists and so on, the same thing will happen during the time of Dajjal. And in fact, it'll be worse because the Prophet ﷺ describes, how it's a long story, but maybe we can give some context that the whole world will be in desperate need for food, water, shelter, and the whole world will be deprived from it. But Dajjal will have it. They'll have rivers of milk. He has rivers of bread, and people will be supporting him despite the oppression that he's done. This is even more desperate times. So
Mm,
what's happening right now is a test for all of us. Can you tell the truth from falsehood? And are you sticking to the truth and your values and your principles, or are you chickening out? So I think it's
mm.
a telltale reminder for us, that the
Yeah,
worst is yet
subhanallah.
to come, and this is
Yeah.
our time to train ourselves and our families, especially our youth, because if the Dajjal will not come during our time, might come during their time or their children's time. So this is a
Yeah,
good reminder for us.
subhanallah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think another one, just to remind what Shami emphasized also, don't never forget making dua for our brothers and sisters. Yeah. So the Prophet ﷺ said that the dua for our brothers and sisters in their absence will always be responded to. There's an angel who specifically is assigned to say Amin, and may Allah grant you the same. Okay,
Mm.
so make dua that Allah grants our brothers and sisters safety, security, strength of iman to endure these difficult times. So whatever difficulties that they go through, it goes through with that clear iman in mind, and that Allah will recompense them on the day of judgment. So always make that dua.
Make dua, inshallah. Allah will answer our prayer. And if we think that we haven't received any response yet, it's either hasten the dua or delay it. It's the wisdom of Allah, or Allah will give us not in this world.
Mm,
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
inshallah.
nice. And last but not least, I think it's a good reminder as well for all of us to be grateful for the favors that Allah has given us. When we look at all the basic things that Allah deprived some of these, if the young children that Gaza, subhanAllah, it should remind us, we have so much that we take for granted. Even to take a nice shower every day, you realize
Yeah.
that that's a
Yeah,
huge blessing, man, subhanAllah.
yeah, subhanallah.
To
Uh,
clean yourself with water.
huh?
To even clean yourself with water
Yeah,
after the toilet. Yep.
Mm.
Yep. There's a blessing itself.
yeah,
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
blessing.
And to be able to seek our risk every day in peace and security, this is
Mm,
always taken for granted by everyone. So time to reflect.
yeah,
Correct.
subhanAllah.
Our brothers in Gaza, they pray in congregation on the rubbles of a mosque, and we got
Yeah.
mosque and it's empty.
Yeah. SubhanAllah, we got
Mm.
carpeted, air-conditioned mosques, mashallah. Still don't come. SubhanAllah. And they have to, push aside the rubble just to perform basic Jum'ah prayers. That's amazing, man. SubhanAllah.
Subhanallah.
One of the thing that sometimes people forget when we talk about this Gaza issue, that is that we sometimes forget to um, go back to Quran, because like myself, when we see the graphics, when we read the news, the women, the kids are tortured, killed by the IDF. I always remind myself with Surah Al-Mutaffifin, ayat 34 until 36, that yeah, right now the enemy of Allah is they are laughing at the kids, right? They kill the kids and they
Mm.
laugh. They even take videos, but then during the Judgment Day, uh, I read the meaning of Surah Al-Mutaffifin, ayat 34 until 36.
No, these are last ayats, right? The
This
one, the
the last
closing
ayat.
one. Yeah.
I always
Yes.
read this ayat when I am I am sad looking at our brothers and sisters in Gaza. So the ayat 34 said that, so today those who believe are laughing at the disbeliever. On that day, they will laugh at the disbeliever because of their crime that they did to the believer, and they will sit on like a sofa, right, like a couch, observing the
Mm.
disbeliever are tortured in the hellfire, and and they will be mocked. Have the disbeliever been rewarded this day for what they used to do? Oh, I
Oh,
think
Oh, it's like a
Subhanallah,
mockery of them.
like a
Yeah,
mockery, right?
yeah. Because they used to
Mm.
mock them in this world. Now you get the mockery. And then now the believers
Subhanallah.
are the ones who get the last laugh.
Last laugh.
I,
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
Yes.
this
That's the
during,
laugh I want to be a part of.
I think we talked about this during Tafsir of Brother Reza, Surah Mutafifin, I think 2 years back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we did that. Yeah.
But
correct.
Allah, it was a, yeah, well, quite interesting explanation, elaboration on this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very nice.
mashallah.
You do
Tabarakallah.
check us out on that Tafsir Al-Mutafifin by Brother Reza.
Yeah, correct,
Yeah, it's
correct.
good. We can put a
Yeah.
link in that as well. And we can mention a link of Surah Al-Insan. I think also by Brother Reza, right? Al-Insan? Was it? No. That was Ashami, I think.
Al-Insan was
Shami.
I think it's,
Ah,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I think we
Yeah.
made mention of some of these themes as well because Surah Al-Insan was revealed during the time where the Muslims in Makkah were being oppressed. So a lot of these ayat were actually reminders for them. And these ayat were the one that give motivations for the companions to remain patient throughout these times. MashaAllah.
Mashallah.
I
Mashallah.
believe they are giving motivation to our brothers and sisters in Gaza too.
Yes.
MashaAllah.
Yes. Mashallah.
I think our brothers in Gaza and sisters in Gaza are giving us motivation.
Yeah,
They are giving
correct.
us motivation.
Yeah.
A reality check.
So to echo Brother Aziz's statements there, that we should also come back to the Quran and really reflect on it, recite it, learn about it, because this will provide us our bearing or compass that you know what is to happen and what is our real goal in this dunya. This
Mm.
is all temporary, what we are seeing here now,
You know,
and the
one
the,
of
the
my
end is
colleagues,
there. Yeah.
yeah, one of
Yes.
my colleagues, asked me I think it's last 3 weeks. He asked, when is the help of Allah came? So
Oh, really?
Really?
when I show him the ayat, I told him this question is not new, you know.
Mm.
It's actually recorded in the Quran. And then when he read it, oh subhanallah, he said, oh okay, this is a test to know are we believers or not. I was like, oh
Wow.
Mashallah.
MashaAllah.
Surah 214, right? There's the ayat just now, Brother Shami mentioned.
Yeah.
Is it?
yeah,
Surah
214
Al-Baqarah,
Al-Baqarah.
214.
Yeah, in Suratul Ankabut, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking a question. He said, Hasiban nasu ayyutraku ay yaqulu amanna wa hum la yuftanun? Do people think that they are left to say, I believe now, and yet they are not tested. So if we are believers, definitely the default is that we will be tested one way or another. So we are tested now with being by being the how do you say this, the spectators looking outside, looking outside, our brothers and sisters, being tortured now in Gaza. What are we going to do? So these are the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take into account if we are doing anything for them, right? So we always remember, I think this is my last word, inshallah, for this, that always remember that as long as we are a human being, especially we are believers, we claim to be believers in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then expect to be tested in many, many ways. Yeah.
I have actually one point of reflection. I actually forgotten this point a long time ago. The catastrophe, the carnage that's happening in Gaza, really realized myself that actually luxury means nothing. And really, it's just about food on the table, shelter above your head for you to sleep. Really, luxury is nothing. You don't feel nice living in luxury when you know your brothers are actually not even can't even meet the basic needs. I mean, that's one of the points as a ummah. When you see your brothers is tested, you feel that pain. One of it is also that because one of the salaf, when he heard, I think it was when Baitul Maqdis was when Sham was attacked. When Sham was attacked, so I can't remember who was this tabi'in. He lost appetite of eating all the luxurious food. He completely lost appetite. He only eat normal bread until the Muslim army reconquered Damashq. Then his appetite came back. That's another angle of like what does it mean as a Muslim when your brothers are suffering? It affects you, not just you care about that, but you think about them quite in a way not to become PTSD or depression, but something for you to learn, for you to improve yourself,
MashaAllah. So just a few closing thoughts from me. I think it's important to remind ourselves that Allah Azza wa Jal knows what's happening. Allah is aware of what's happening. And remind ourselves that Allah loves these human beings more than you and me. Allah is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So we have mercy for them. But remember, who has more mercy towards them is Allah Azza wa Jal. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ emphasized that Allah loves them more than a mother loves her own infant. And Allah hates to see them tortured like that, even more than a mother hates to throw her baby into the fire. So we know that all these losses are never in vain, and we hope that Allah gives them the strength to go through this, so that they will enter the highest levels of paradise. And we also make dua that we will be reunited with them and the highest levels of paradise. And as Aziz mentioned, that we'll all have the last laugh together. Right? So may Allah Azza wa Jal unite all of us in the highest levels of paradise with our brothers and sisters.
Ameen.
And may Allah give us this istiqamah to do what's in our level best to help them in whatever way that Allah has given us the strength to do. If you can contribute monetary funds in a trustworthy source, please go ahead. Make dua for them, raise awareness, right? Do not get numb from these kinds of things. And may Allah Azza wa Jal grant us istiqamah to the end.
Ameen.
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 Ameen. Okay, with that, thank you, brothers and sisters, for your time. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.